Welcome to the MoMENtum Lifestyle Podcast, where we interview an inspiring, educational, and entertaining guest to help you build confidence, find balance, and live a life of impact. We'd like to thank our sponsor today, Be Spunky. Now, Blake, Janoah, and myself have been using their Reboot product for well over 6 months now, and it has been life-changing. I found myself recovering faster, having way more energy throughout the day, and honestly feeling just more jacked up as a man. And this is because Reboot is clinically formulated to support healthy male hormone levels, providing stress relief, improved strength and stamina, enhanced drive, and overall well-being. Be Spunky Reboot contains a proprietary blend of 10 natural and organic herbs and active ingredients that are renowned for helping men to enhance physical and cognitive performance, improve stamina, energy, and endurance, optimize testosterone levels, support healthy reproductive function, support cardiovascular function, relieve stress, mild anxiety, irritability, relieve tiredness, fatigue, support healthy sleep patterns, and support healthy body weight. So as you can see, it is a must-have product for all men. So head to their website, bespunky.com.au. That's bespunki.com.au, and use the code MoMENtum to receive 10% off all Be Spunky products.
Gentlemen, welcome to the podcast. How are you both?
Hello, Blake.
Hello.
Good to have you guys here. Today, we're going all in. We, at the start of the year, or the back end of last year, made a little bit of a promise of what our goal, theme, or intention was for the first quarter of the year. Janoah, yours, just as a little recap, what was your topic or theme?
So, I had an overarching yearly theme, which was sort of based around presence and power. And within that was, I broke down the first quarter, was really getting clear and focused on my business and wealth stuff. So this, like December, pretty much December, January, February, March has been all around working on any kind of wealth blocks and really getting clear on what my business looks like, its model, who it's for, why I'm doing it, getting really, really clear on that. So that is my current focus, mate.
Beautiful. Come back to all the details of that. Dylan Ruse, your focus for the first quarter of the year?
Well, my focus was around following through on my word and getting things done. And the reality of the last 3 months has shaken that up quite a lot and really challenged me, which again I'm sure we'll get into. But that was the theme that I set out, and we're working through that.
Beautiful, mate. Very much looking forward to hearing about your last 3 months.
What was yours, BWT?
Well, my theme for the year and my theme for the first quarter of the year was very much around connection. And on the surface level, it seems pretty simple. But with each week that I do work with my coach, we've literally done 9 weeks on connection. There seems to be another layer that continues to unpack and unfold. So it's been a wild 9 weeks already, and keeping this theme again for the next quarter of the year and the overarching theme for the whole year. It's going to be interesting to see what comes of it. So Dills, you've probably had the wildest of the three of us when it comes to the first quarter of the year, but maybe give us a little update as to what the work has looked like for you over the last 3 months and what's been playing out.
Well, just a small life update. I'm expecting to have a child in about 3.5 months time, 4 months time. So that's been a massive life update and has thrown really my entire world, not upside down because I don't want to sound like a cliche, but it's just shooken everything up. Really forced me to level up in every area of my life and drop away a lot of things that wasn't serving me, which I was aware of, but I had the luxury of being 27 years old and single and living a digital nomad lifestyle, and as long as work was okay, I could kind of be in the boy psychology that I liked, that people describe it as, and I was very much in that. And I think one of the biggest realizations I had through this process, speaking to you guys maybe a month ago, was like, man, I've lived 27 years as a boy, and now overnight I need to step up and be a man, and that's just thrown a lot of challenges my way.
What does that look like? I mean, if you're kind of going to drill down a little bit on it, what's that look like, and what's the initiation, the first 3 months of it anyway, look like?
Yeah. The biggest word that's been just reoccurring is responsibility. Responsibility. I'm no longer just responsible for myself. I'm responsible for my partner. I'm responsible for my baby that's on the way. And so this initiation process has been massive in the fact that there is no way out. There's no escape plan. There's no plan B. It's plan A. And I think for someone who's lived the majority of their life as kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out, it's been really challenging, because when a relationship got difficult in the past, it was easy to leave because, well, we've been dating for 6 months. This isn't really the one, see you later. Now it's when an issue arises within this relationship, there's no way out. And I'm not necessarily looking for a way out. It's just that was the default that I was playing off of. So the challenge, or the word that sums it up, is just responsibility. That really is that initiation, and not necessarily initiation into fatherhood as such, because that will come, I have no doubt. It's the initiation into manhood that I'm going through that's been really difficult, and all that's coming up for me in that process, having to really go through a rites of passage and deliberately put myself through a rites of passage so that I can step into manhood and step into fatherhood. And that's been really difficult. That there's been a lot of deaths in itself with my relationship with my inner child. That's been really difficult, having to let go, as I said, let go of things that no longer serve me, but represent a much bigger piece than just what it looks like on the surface. It's been a lot of deaths, a lot of challenges, a lot of just shaky footing as I'm over the last 3 months. But the common theme is just responsibility.
All right, Jay, you can just sit there quietly, mate. I'll ask all the questions today, if that's okay. Then. Nice to have you, though, mate. It's good to have you.
Sorry,
here.
Yeah.
What would you have done differently over the last couple of years? Do you think? You talk about the initiation and the transformation from boyhood to manhood. What would you do differently if you had your time again? But also, what would you potentially, as a 28, 29, 28?
27, turning 28.
27-year-old, what would you have told your 24-year-old self in the lead up to this kind of very fast-paced initiation that you're going through now?
It's a good question. I mean, I don't know if this is just my ego or what, but I think, because of the nature of what the last 3 to 6 months has been, which has come out of left field. It was not a design. I mean, me and my partner, Catherine, haven't been dating for a couple of years and then decided to get married and then decided to have kids. We met, fell in love, parted ways, and then came back together through the creation of this child. I moved overseas to LA, and our final words were, if the universe brings us back together, then we'll come back together. And so a month later, hey Dylan, I'm pregnant. So the universe brought us back together pretty quickly. And it's a difficult one, because I think at 24, I was living life as a 24-year-old. I was living at home. I'd lived out of home for a while. I was working part-time. I was working on my business part-time. I was enjoying myself. I was dating somebody else probably. I think potentially what I would go back and tell my younger self is get your house in order and learn some of the basics that I just didn't need to know. Like get on top of basic accounting, get on top of your taxes, get on top of just basic stuff that I just had no need for at that time and had no desire to look into, because again, the need wasn't there. So I think that if would have helped what I'm going through now is like, okay, cool. I'm across my accounting stuff. I'm across basic business stuff. Again, I've moved overseas, so now I'm having to learn a whole new system over here. So I think that's definitely something that I would tell my 24-year-old self. Hindsight's a great thing. If I could go back and be like, mate, you are going to be a dad in 3 years' time. Here's all the things you should start doing now. Then yeah, absolutely. But I've got to honor my younger self and say I was doing the best I could at the time. And I don't want to betray my younger self in that regard. So I think that's something that I probably could have just taken more responsibility over in my parts of my life, was just, hey, mate, get around money, understand it, understand the taxes and understand the accounting processes, because you will need that regardless of however your life goes. So, yeah.
And obviously I know Catherine quite well, and in terms of more the relationship side of things, what do you see as, what's shifted for you in maybe how you used to communicate, behave, deal with issues in a relationship? And the second part of the thing also is from her, and like, what are the things that she is doing that you're like, oh, that has helped me so much in terms of how she communicates to you, or how she holds space for you, or how she challenges you? Like, what are the things that she also does from the other side of things? Because you're going through a lot, right?
Yeah.
we know you're getting bashed on from all the sides.
Yeah.
Having a partner who is can carry some certain ways really important as well. What does that look like?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I'm noticing in my behavior, to answer the first part of that, is how much you do things to spite your partner, because you want to be right and you want to hold on to that, well, I'm right in this situation. And so you do these things that really, they're not helpful for the relationship, but they make your ego feel really good. And that's been the big transition for me. And I'm I'm really grateful for the books I've read, the conversations we have, the work that we do at MoMENtum, the work that I do with my young guys, because in those really highly emotional moments, I have a really loud voice that's saying, Dylan, this isn't the right thing that you should be doing right now. Like, go back into the room, sit down. And I'm really fortunate that voice is louder than my ego voice now. That voice of like, yeah, storm out. You're in the right here. Storm out, get in the car, go do this, go do that. Like, yeah, show her what happens when we get to this point. And I think that's been the biggest difference for me, is like, no, I can't afford to be in that place. And it's not the place to be, because, all right, I love her, and I have to walk back into that room after the argument. I have to sit down, and I have to stop being a baby, because that's what it is. It's this desire to, I think it's my avoidant attachment style plays out, and that avoidant attachment style plays out in, oh, you've hurt me, I'm going to show you why you shouldn't do that by hurting you. And so that plays out a lot for me. And again, I'm really fortunate through the work that I'm doing and the conversations that the three of us have, that the other voice is now louder. And so I can, just last week we did this beautiful connection exercise. I was really vulnerable. I got hurt in it. And then I was like, nah, this is not safe. I'm sick of this. I'm sick of having this conversation. I start to stonewall. And then I left the room, and I get to the kitchen, and I'm like furious. And I'm like, oh, this is not good, Dylan. Like, you need to turn around and go back in. And the voice is like, nah, don't go. Get in the car. Go drive off. Like, show her that she can't do this to you. And I'm just like I'm so angry, because I'm like, you have to turn around. And the ego's like, no, you don't. And then of course I turn around and I walk back in the room and I'm like breathing and I'm angry and I'm like, oh, and I sit on the edge of the bed and I'm not facing her and I'm sitting there and I'm breathing. But it's really easy to know all the right things to do when you aren't triggered. But I think everybody gets triggered no matter how much work you do. There's still parts in the relationship where you do get triggered. And so when I get triggered, it's like, I don't give a fuck about everything that I've learned. I want to prove to her that, like, that again, that stonewalling, that avoidance. So that's been the biggest thing that I've noticed in the shift in my behavior is I'm no longer spending a lot of time in the stonewalling, in the avoidant, in the ego. I still get there. And I think that's my point too. It's like, I definitely get there and I get triggered and I get upset and I get angry and I don't communicate well. But I think that the time that I spend in there is really reduced. And I think too, previously I enjoyed being in that space in my previous relationships. I enjoyed manipulating. I enjoyed playing a game within the relationship. And now it's not a game anymore. We have a kid on the way. It's no longer a game that I'm playing. It's like, this is real fucking life, Dylan, and you need to show up before this kid gets here as best you can. So that's been the biggest shift I've noticed internally. Yeah.
What I've actually heard that explained once. Someone explained that. So the part of our ego that's about us being right and protecting our identity and judging that person, the separation. It's almost like it's like the little kid in the backseat of the car, like, let's go this way, let's do that. And then it's like, it's literally, you decide, are you gonna let the little kid drive? No, you wouldn't. You put it in the back seat and it can yap away at you as much as it likes, but you're in the driver's seat. You go, no, we're going this way. This is how we're going to do things. So you're kind of, I feel like you're in that process of like, finally you've taken the little kid out the front seat and you're like, you're in the back.
Yeah.
I can hear you.
And he's fucking fighting, man. Like, this has been the big I know we're kind of going down a different path, and I will come back to that second part of the question because I think it's important too, because Kat does a lot of things right. But that's been the biggest challenge for me, like the inner child work and the taking the kid out of the driver's seat. And honoring it, because it's a death, it's an integration, and it's an honoring process. I think it's all three combined in a healthy way. And so I'm having to give like a real life example. I'll give a couple of real life examples. So moved places, got here, finally got a TV and set up my PlayStation, right? And then slowly over time, each week, my time spent on the PlayStation would increase. And it was like, why? What's the need? What am I getting from this need? And why is this thing still here? It doesn't serve me, but what is it serving? Like, what kind of purpose is it? Okay, it's serving connection, and it's serving connection with my friends back home, and I don't want to lose them. And I'm condensing this process that I kind of have just undergone. But the honoring part of the inner child was realizing, okay, this is something that my inner child really needs, but it doesn't serve the man Dylan anymore. And I'm using it as an excuse for the connection piece and for this. And really what it is my inner child's really scared to let go and give the reins over to me. And that's what it was. And he's really scared that he's going to lose friends. And it's like, cool, we step out of that fear state. You're not going to lose any friends. If you really want to connect with your friends, just call them, because you've done that for 3 to 6 months before when you weren't playing PlayStation. So that's just a cop out. Okay. And what I did was I had one last night. Okay, we're playing and we're done. And now it's gone. It's away. And it's that honoring process of like the ritual of, like, for me, it was a ritual of putting that device away and going, okay, that's done now. Like, that it represented a beautiful part. And I didn't even just talking about it with Kat and explaining what was going through and getting deeper underneath the layers of it. Like, I found myself crying as I was explaining to her, like, what it represented to me. And it represented my childhood. It represented my first 26 years of life. Like, I remember getting my first PlayStation at like 9 or 10, then getting PlayStation 2, 3, 4. Like, it represented a lot more than just this thing that I played video games on. It represented like my childhood and my connection to my best friend Matt, who I've known for 22 years. So it represented a lot more. So honoring the inner child and having a ritual, putting it away and going, okay, that's it. And then the death and the integration of the child, and saying the integration of the child is then, well, where else can I get that connection? Okay, well, I can get my connection through calling them up, rather than spending 4 hours playing PlayStation. And so that's been a massive thing, because as all the other areas of my life up leveled through the partnership and through fatherhood and through manhood, that was like my one little thing I still had left from my old self or my inner child or my old life. And so as everything else kind of up leveled, the grip on that became so much stronger. And it was like, oh fuck, do not lose this, spend more time over here. Life's changing. We don't want life to change. And so having to let it go and really honor it and going, okay, it's done now, give it its time, it's gone, done, was huge from that, the inner child. And as you said, taking him out of hey mate, you're going to be safe. I've got you now. You're safe, you're loved, and really telling him that too, like, you are safe, you're loved, you're safe, you're not going anywhere. Like, one of my strengths is being a little playful child, right? Like bringing joy. And so just integrating it more into my life in healthier ways has been big. Really.
Did he answer the second part of the question? Yeah.
And then the second part, what does Catherine do really well? She's really stepped into, as we've gotten to know each other better and as we've progressed into our relationship, she's gotten really good at honoring all areas of myself and how I show up, and honoring that role that I want to play, the provider, I want to play the caregiver, but also understanding that the period that I'm going through is just as challenging as it is rewarding, and I am going through a lot. And she's really held space for me to cry, to feel what I've needed to feel, to hold my shame, and really created a safe place for me to communicate that to her. And really, I think we are in a fortunate position where it really is a sink or swim moment. We haven't had years to develop a relationship. We haven't had a long period of time to get to know each other and to like go through that dating process of like, are you the one? Are you not the one? It's like, cool, you're the one. No matter what I think, you have to be. Like, we're here, let's work on it and let's work through it. And I think that's actually been a blessing in disguise, because there is no filter of, oh, do I want to date you? It's, okay, we're here, you're the mother of my child, I'm showing up as best I can, she's showing up as best I can. I know that if I'm not vulnerable, I'll resent you, so I have to be vulnerable. She knows if she doesn't hold me in that space, then I'll stop being vulnerable, and she wants me to do that. And so it's actually been a blessing in terms of, we don't have that one eye or that one foot elsewhere. It's like, cool, we're here, we're all in. And so that's really enabled both of us, and especially her, to hold space for all parts of me. And I think one thing that we talk about, Blake and Janoah, when women come to us and say, how do I get my man to open up more? I think one of the first questions we ask them is, well, does he feel safe opening up more within your relationship? And so Kat's really allowed the relationship to feel safe so that I can open up and be all that I can be. And that's been, without that, it's a really rocky foundation to build a relationship upon.
With the, I saw actually quite a funny, it was like a meme video the other day on Instagram around holding space, and the guy was like, so you want to hold space for me? It was like, so are you doing it now? Like, what does it mean? And the word sounds all like hold space, like, sounds very like, what's the word for that? Connected or whatever. But what if you could like simplify it? So when you say that word, like, what does it mean? What has she done that has created that safe space for you? Like, what does that look like?
It's funny that you ask that, because I know what that word means, and you know what that word means, and Blake knows what that word means, because we're coaches. And I forget that Kat's not a coach. And so I was in that moment last week when I said I was really vulnerable, we got into an argument, all that. I was getting really frustrated, because I was like, I'm hurting right now and I need you to hold space. But she had no idea what that was. She didn't know what holding space was. And so I was like, no, you don't. Again, I was really emotionally triggered. I was like, you don't share. Like, you don't share right now. You listen to me and you ask me what I need. And so I had to, because I forgot, I was like, she's not familiar in this space. She doesn't understand what this means. And so I had to really outline like what it was. She was getting frustrated. She's like, Dylan, I don't know what you need. I don't know what you want right now. And it was like, I want you to listen to me, and I don't want you to bring what you're going through into what I'm going through. I need you to just to hold me right now in what I'm going through and not try to overlap or share what you're going through as a result. I just want you to listen and ask me what I need in this moment. And she was like, great. And then she did. And then I felt seen, heard, and loved, and I felt amazing. And then the next day, we came back together, and then she shared what she was going through, and I held space for her. And so that's the best way that I hope that does make it simple. It's like, it's one person saying, hey, I've got you, talk to me, what's going on, and listening. And then that, and not sharing whatever they feel like they need to share. And so I think getting the balance, not solving,
judging,
not judging. And that's really important. I think I really truly believe it's the judgment piece that stops a lot of men from sharing. I think they share, and then instead of holding space, people, I don't want to just like cornhole women, but people then start to judge. And so men are like, well, I'm not going to share, and I'm not going to be my authentic self because you're judging me right now. And I think we all have the shadow, like we all have the shadow. We've all got, I've just started the book Existential Kink, which Kat, we're reading together. And that's like, even just the first chapter, you're like, fuck, this is amazing. And I think that's key. I think a lot of people, I think a lot of women think they know what it is, but maybe don't do it as best as they can for their men. And in the experience that I've had, I think men do it pretty well in the friendships that I've cultivated and the men that I see. I think that's a strength of men, is holding space, listening, cool. Women feel better. Men tippy toe into that space, get judged, and they're like, fuck that, I'm not going there again. So I think it's just, that's what it is.
I'd completely agree with that, Deals. We've worked with men for 2.5 years now. One of the most common themes is like, he won't, talk to me, or he won't share. And then we get him in our environment, because we've spent a lot of time understanding how to listen properly and hold space. And, he's been beaten down by her almost from a place of thinking he's like emotionally retarded. And then we get him into his space, he opens up, and there's not a problem. So there needs to be a little bit of ownership from women in terms of actually developing these skills. And I think you and I have similar experiences in the past where people think they do it really well, but fuck all, people do it well. And there is an amazing level of connection, and also a really, really good high that comes in a deep connection where you feel seen and properly seen. And again, I've been seen by people that I've known for 30 minutes and not seen by people that I've been intimate with for 18 months. And you just have to be seen once, often, in your depth. And there's a knowing with that person. There's a knowing. There doesn't even have to be words. There's a knowing. And then you've got people you've known for 10, 20, 30 years that just don't understand it. And what I will say, just to neutralize this skill set, is a lot of people, one, feel uncomfortable with other people's emotions. So they almost like freak the fuck out. They don't know what to do with someone's emotion. And two, they genuinely think that they're helping by giving a solution or speaking. And they're not. For a lot of people, they feel like, oh, I just sit and listen and that's helpful. Yeah, it is. It's really fucking helpful for you not to say a thing, just to listen properly. So just something for people to keep in mind of like, there's a lot of value in, as we coin the term, kind of holding space, but just listening without providing solutions. And also what I will add, and this is a conversation that's come up in my relationship, I often don't need to be held accountable in that moment. If I'm fucking raging or I'm really upset, cool. Tomorrow, hold me accountable and give me like a different perspective. Don't do it in that moment, because you will that's like a red rag to a bull if you're trying to hold me accountable when I'm raging. Cool. I don't mind tomorrow holding me accountable and give me a different perspective. Do not do it in that moment.
Yeah. I think something that really Red Bull raged me was not being able to show up as anything but my best self. And that's what it was. It was like, hey, you need to show up as your best self 24/7. And the second that I dipped or I got out of control or I showed emotion or I had a bad day, it was this shame and judgment of like why you talk about communication and look at the way you're communicating. And it's like, fuck me. So I have to be perfect 24/7. Meanwhile, I'll still love you in all of your imperfections and hold space. And you love that I do that, but you can't do that for me. And that would enrage me. Like that would just get me so upset. But it got to the point where it no longer enraged me. It made me apathetic. And in my apathy, I didn't give a fuck about the relationship. And that's not a good place to be either. And so I really think the loving all of your partner is the only way to come together. You know, you need to love like all the parts of them, the sticky, the ugly, because we all have it. So if me and Janoah are in a relationship and I'm only loving what he's showing me, and then the second he shows me something that I don't like and he feels that, he's not going to show me that anymore. And then he's going to go, okay, I need to construct an image that you will love and put that out into the world. That's not going to be a long-term relationship, because he's not going to, even you can love him, I can love him as much as I can, but all I'm loving is the image that he's put forward, and I'm not actually loving him. So he can't even feel the love that I'm giving him because it's fake. And so you have to, one of the things that has been really challenging for Kat and I has been my shadow and my shit that I've been trying to work through for years and years and years has been my relationship with women and cheating on women and being unfaithful. And so one of the solutions that I found, it's like being really honest and sharing when things rise to the surface. So what that looks like on a practical level is like, oh, that's she's really good looking, and oh, she's really good looking, and wow, that's good looking, right? And actually sharing that with my partner. And it's been really challenging for Kat because she's like, it's difficult. We're a brand new relationship. She's pregnant. She doesn't feel her best self, but she's doing really well in that, because for me, it's like I'm showing up and I'm being really honest with you. And if I start to hide that part of myself, it festers and I get shameful, and it grows, and I know where that path leads me, because it starts with, I can't tell you that I think that another girl's good looking, and it ends with me, sleeping with someone else, because that has been my past. And so when I can nip it in the butt and go, wow, that's a good looking human, it liberates me from that shame, and it liberates me from like, oh, this is a dirty little secret, a dirty little thought, to I'm sharing something beautiful with my partner that, wow, there's a good looking human being. And I can take that energy and I can put it into our love, and I can put it into our relationship, and I can transmute the lust, and I can create love out of sharing it with my partner. And that's been really important.
Fuck me, that is so significant. And with all respect, that's why most people are fucking liars, like absolute fucking liars, because they can't have those conversations with their partner. And you get old mate showing up all polished and, like only eyes for my woman. And then he's in his fucking mother-in-law's car park, jacking off in his car to like inappropriate porn before he goes in all polished for dinner.
Yeah.
Fuck, mate. Stop fucking lying to yourself and everyone else, and create a safe.
Blake?
Mate, you've never seen me polished. I'm not polished. There's nothing about me that's polished.
I'm like the guy in the back car, in the car.
Yeah. But that's like, I resonate with that so much, because if you can't like honor that someone's good looking, or that, whatever it might be, you start creating disassociation, you start creating shame. And most importantly, and most scary part of that, is you deepen and create a stronger shadow. And if you don't understand shadow work, that starts to run your unconscious system, and you become a fucking ticking time bomb because you haven't been able to show all parts of yourself.
And also the degradation of character is really slow. It's a really slow process. And so when you make one lie, it turns into 2 and 3 and 4, and individually they might be like, there might be 10 white lies, but when you start to lie and your character starts to become affected by it, then it really is such a slippery slope. Like I'm at the stage now where I don't keep anything from Kat. Like if I have a wank, I'm like, hey babe, I just had a wank. I have to, because if I don't share it with her, I know what it does to me. It's like, oh, Dylan, you just had a wank and you're in a relationship, and like, what are you doing? Like, you shouldn't be doing that. Whereas like, hey, I just had a wank, and she's like, oh, how was it? It's like, yeah, it was good. Okay, cool. Like, and there's no shame around it. It's open, and what it is, it's a representation of her loving all of me. It's like, wow, I can come to my partner and tell her that I just had a wank, and she's like, I love you. Oh, wow, that feels good.
Dude, it's so like
the other part of that, which I think is important to be mindful of, is that, say, if someone's going to start doing that, not just suddenly start sharing all the things that they're thinking of. It's got to be really clearly communicated why I'm sharing this. And also then, to balance that out, you'd be reinforcing the love and trust in the relationship 100%. As well. Because, one of the biggest things that I see is, people's lack of self-worth and comparison. And so that's got to be balanced out with, on the other side, really reinforcing the love and the relationship and the reason for that kind of open communication. Because without 100%. That as a pre-conversation.
Yeah, 100%. And it's the balancing act, because then if Kat gets triggered when I tell her something, I have to love the part that's triggered in her as well. I can't just be like, babe, hey, that's not cool. Like, you're shaming me. It's like, no, she's just experiencing her own form of shame and triggers. And I need to be comfortable enough to balance it out as well. And also, as you said, Jay, it's not this floodgates of like, being disrespectful and like sharing every little thing. It's like, it's growing over time, and it's sharing more over time, and it's giving them the understanding of why it's important to share. It's not just like, oh fuck, she's fucking hot, and they're sitting there going, what's going on here? Like, why is this happening? It's like, no, you have that conversation beforehand. Hey, it's really important to me that I share what I'm going through, because if it doesn't, it festers as shame. And she's like, oh great, okay, cool, I can hold space for that. So giving your partner the best chance to succeed as well is really important.
I think also, even to take it a step back, if you don't share it with your partner, to honor how you feel, because otherwise you create, again, disassociation. You like self-awareness. Like, if you feel something in your body, like, fuck, we don't need to act on every single desire. Otherwise we're going to create a really unhealthy world. But you can notice a desire that you've got, or you can notice a like warmth that you get. And, we speak to men about this all the time. Like, that's a really fucking healthy thing to do, to be able to notice and honor what's coming up for you instead of judging it or trying to suppress it. Just notice it. And then the next evolution of that is to be able to kind of move it or just honor it without having to take action, So there's a real level of self-awareness and self-mastery that comes in honoring, yes, I'm in a committed relationship, and, I'm feeling a little movement in my pants over, that really beautiful person across the road. I've heard that happens. I don't know if it's true. I just heard that can happen for some
a little movement in my pants.
I think it's the intention behind everything. If the intention is in love and in integrity, then like, you want a partner who loves that part of you, like, it's my intention of sharing with Kat is to deepen our love and to ensure that I don't fester shame. So it's founded in love. Now, if I'm a narcissist and it's my intention to share that I think girls are good looking to make you feel worse about yourself, no, like, that's not okay. So I just want to be clear on that too, is it comes down to the intention. My intention is based in love and integrity, and it's not at all a way to create some sort of cop out or excuse to act, shit or anything.
Yeah, perfect. We've just got the little move along for part 2, which is good. But I just want to acknowledge that as well. And Jordan Peterson, Robert Greene do a lot of work on this space in particular, of like, you've got to remember you are a raw primal being. And that is a very attractive thing when it's channeled in the right way. And the first part of that is to honor how you feel. rightly or wrongly. So like the female loves that raw primal part when it's channeled the right way, but for you to suppress it isn't the answer. It's just to learn how to channel it.
Yeah.
Good insights, Dill. Great insights. Janoah, thanks for that, mate. Janoah, your last 3 months, mate. A recap, insights, any golden nuggets. Talk us through them all.
Oh, mate. So with an intention to focus on any blocks or issues I have around my stories with wealth and money. And then also my business having sort of moved around a few times over the last last 18 months or so. I really wanted to become a lot more solid with my business, and also with what I'd noticed with me with success, business, wealth, was that I would have these like a period where things would go really well, and then there'd seem to be there'd always be this like click where it sort of falls back again to where it was. And so that felt like there was almost like a barrier or a block, when I even like a ceiling where I'm like, what's going on here? So what is it about I get to this kind of level? And it's hard to notice if I'm doing much differently, but I wouldn't see that many big parts changing in my behavior, but there's obviously something at a deeper level that was going on there. And I was like, what's going on here? And so working with Pixie was a designated, and I've done work with both Zoe and Pixie. So Zoe was more around the mask and the fam stuff, and Pixie, I'm doing more stuff with this stuff around wealth and business. And there were a couple of interesting things that come up. And one was really heavily tied to me picking up some like old stories from mum and views towards the uber wealthy and successful, right? And how we used, like how they were viewed, and the communication was around that. And I think the other day, B-Dubs, remember we were crossing the road, and we picked up on there's still a strong hold there. So it was quite funny where we were crossing the road, and all these cars just kept like going. No one was like, they were going really slow because it was a bit of a traffic jam, but no one was like giving us the room. And then this big fancy like brand new Rangy stopped, and they were like smiled and waved us through. And my reaction was I said, who would have thought out of all the cars, the Rangy was the person that did that? And so it's like, and that just reinforces like there's still some level of deeper belief that like the uber wealthy, the uber elite successful are assholes. Now, if that's a fundamental belief of mine, am I going to let myself become uber wealthy and rich, or however you want to call it, right? And even that, when I think about it and talk about it, it's only been more lately that even to openly communicate that I want to become wealthy. Like even that, to not be ashamed of that. Because I remember even there was a level of shame around admitting that I know, like, I'm not purely driven by those external things at all. We do a lot of work, on values, and we're really clear on what the other parts are, but it's also still okay. Just because you're a coach or spiritual doing the work doesn't mean you can't want to make bank and, and enjoy those things. And so it was, even that's been a shift already. The fact that I'm just like, yeah, this is what I'm working towards. I want to be able to do that. But then at a deeper level, there's obviously, because that just came out, I didn't even think, that just came out as a passing comment. But you looked at me and you smiled and you go, "Do you hear what you just said then?" I went, "Yeah, I just did." I was like, "Well, there you go." So it's and that's unraveling. That's been, because some of this stuff even came up with Zoe in the mask and femme stuff, and it shows how deeply ingrained this stuff can be. And it's deeper than just having an idea and going, "Oh, okay, I've realized that I think this or act this way." I mean, as you know, like with how many levels your connection's going, like it's ingrained in deeper levels. So that's one thing that really stood out for me, that there's some kind of perception that I have at a deeper level of what it means to be rich, wealthy, successful. And there is a fear also that came up that I noticed in a session with Pix. There was a fear around the person that I would turn into when I become and step into that next level of wealth or success. And because, in the past, I remember there were phases when I had a really good job, and I was only quite young. I was only 20s, and I was in control of and managing a lot of people, and I was making good money, and there's a lot of freedom and all this sort of thing. And that was also a phase of my life where I probably was the most arrogant and self-involved and insensitive to other people. And so it also came up that there is still a slight fear that if things, suddenly go to this next level, that I won't be able to keep myself in track. Like consciously it makes sense. Like the work that we all do together, and I've got you boys to, bash me across the side of the head. But there's obviously, again, there's something deeper that's like, oh, but what if I do lose myself for a bit, and having in the past, we all know very well, like, and out of the three of us, I'm the biggest party guy. And in the past, it was fun, but also a crux of mine, right? It could be destructive. And while now I still enjoy it, there's still times when I'm like, oh, could I get caught up in that if I was just like, didn't need to work as much and blah, blah, like where would I go? So there's obviously some deeper work that needs to be done in those areas around removing some of those blocks to take things to the next level. So it's been that quarter is going to extend beyond this quarter pretty clearly. So
funny how many, like, you start, it's an onion, right? You're like, oh, just peel back one layer. Oh, okay. There's enough. Then all of a sudden you're like BWT and you're 9 weeks into a connection piece and you're like, fuck, this has been a lot more than what I thought it was. And yeah, it's. I think we had this conversation in one of the mentorship chats with the boys that are currently in the mentorship. It's like the work doesn't stop. If anything, like, you just understand how much work you still have to do. Like the more you do the work, you're more like, I've got a lot more work to do. And it just keeps expanding, which is just so enjoyable.
Well, I think that's really important, but not only in terms of the work, but also in terms of goals, and I think all well and good to have goals, and this definitely isn't the topic for today, but if you're fixated on an outcome or a destination, you're fucked, because it's never as exciting when you get there as you think it's going to be. And there's a lot more to be said for the pursuit and the process than the destination and the outcome. And if you can really embody that, you'll stay in a good place. If you're fixated on, what most society is of like, when I get to, then I'll be ... you're fucked. Absolutely every one of you who has a belief around that is fucked. It's never going to be as good as you think it is when you get there, and you need to like really get yourself together and learn to enjoy the process and see it as like a journey. There's no destination.
Yeah, the man who enjoys walking will walk further than the man who enjoys the destination.
It's really, and that exact point there around sort of the journey and being, what's the word, just absorbed in and excited by the process and the simple things that come, along the way, is something actually that I had the beautiful gift of experiencing while hanging with my old man. And so, the old boy is such a simple guy, right? So like he owns a practice and a property, and he's got investments, and he's got cash all tied up, but he's never been driven by that as an end goal or where he wants to be at the end of it. And he's always lived with, I'm not sure if he consciously does this, with how he can create value for others. He is really driven by that. And then also he's just so excited by and enjoy and easily satisfied by the simple little things. And we were, when I go back and stay with him, he's at the moment, because he was moved out of his old house, he's been living in a caravan on the side of someone else's property. And me, I'm like, oh, he's like, yeah, that's all I need. I'm like, okay. And he's like, you know, right? And we sit there and we went out for had a few beers at the pub and had a bite to eat, and then we came back and even just these little things like, oh, look at these, and he pulled out this little bag where he got these like fresh prunes that he picked from someone's tree as he walked past. Oh, how good are these things? And I was just like, yeah, okay. And I was like, okay. And we're sitting there chatting, we're sitting there talking, and he's like, oh, it's this beautiful flock of birds the other day. You know, look, they're over there, and I was like, this is just the enjoyment of the simple things in life, right? And you know, even for breakfast, we had a bit of muesli and some water, and it was amazing. We had a cup of coffee he made with this simple little thing, and I was like, and I didn't enjoy that any less than I have, you know, doing the fancy highlight. They're both enjoyable in a different way, and he's always been such a grounding experience for me in that way. And he's even mentioned it because, you know, there are times when I've got caught up in the, like, I'm working, I'm blah blah, I'm creating and this and that, and he's like, and he's even said, he goes, oh, you know, enjoying where you're at, you know, enjoying where you're at, and I'm like, yep, remember, enjoy where you're at, enjoy where you're at. And so yeah, in that sense, I've been quite lucky that he's always been that experience for me as well. Every time that we hang out, he's always that. Just the simple beautiful things are what he enjoys. And funnily enough, and being such a generous, adding value kind of person to other people's lives, he's also like financially called in all he needs and more. So from that energy as well, like, cause he doesn't come from the need, or he's always like, how can I help? You know, this is fine, blah, blah. And funnily enough, like, money's always come easily to him as well. So it's interesting understanding that energy, that it's a magnetic energy as well, which I've seen firsthand with someone like him. So it's that really, that was an example, B-dubs, that point of yours that I'm lucky enough I get to experience when I have him as that representation of a whole different way of looking at things. Little white wizard.
How does that play into your money stories, do you think?
Which
or
part?
does it play into your money stories?
The old boy?
Yeah, like as in like seeing your dad so happy with relatively not much, or just being so appreciative of what he does have, and then also seeing that, as you said, it kind of draws in the wealth. Is there, you know, we were talking about layers just before, you know, is there a layer of that you are aware of, or you think you might become aware of down the track in relation to your money stories?
Well, something that now has come to my awareness and something I'm trying to shift is shifting from the position of trying to get to like giving, creating value. And it's such a different energy, and not just in money, like just in the way you do things in the world and the way you run your business. And it's so for me, and it's come before. I remember this. I've actually learned this from my mentor, who was my old boss. It was never an official mentor, but I was calling that because he was that to my life. And I still remember we'd go into meetings and we were trying to sell our product. But the way he would go into those meetings was not about, he wasn't talking about our pricing and our quality of product and blah, blah. He was literally, how can I add value to this person's business, right? And this person's life. And I was like, wow. And even just with your business, instead of always trying to worry about the next sale or launch, it's like, how can you add value to everyone who watches what you do, or your clients? And I see that with the way my dad carries himself, is everyone in his life, like, he adds so much value to the people, that he gives a lot to the people around him. Like, there's old friends whose daughters, you know, go for a rough patch, and he's the one there who's helping them out and adding value. And even with the business that he owns. And I'm sitting there going, all right, so you got to up these guys' rent because this is me coming in. And he's like, that's not what this is for. That's not what this is about. I want to create a clinic that is known for this, and this. And this person is a great person to have part of the clinic, so I want to support them. I'm like, there you fucking go again. Like, you know, and it's always about adding value, creating value, as opposed to what can I get from this person? I need to get more money out of them. I want to create this so I can sell it for this amount of profit. Like, that's not how he's savvy. Like, he gets politics and finance. Like, he's not at all just an airy fairy hippie. He's very intelligent and he gets that stuff, but that's not what he leads with. So that is something that I'm now more and more aware of. It's like, okay, give versus get, create value versus take, because that again is an energy that repels. That's scarcity. That's lack. I need this because I don't have enough. So even that is also highlighted again, a different energy to come from, and that's in everything you do in the world. So that's been a really powerful one that it's kind of really landed for me properly in the last few weeks. So I'm like, okay, let's shift this again. People, friends, what's going on? Because I've had moments of it and I've sort of forgot about it again and got back into like crack, hustle kind of mode. And so it's like, hang on a second, shift again. So yeah, there's always different bloody levels and layers that are coming out of it. But that's what feels good for me right now. But I feel like there's a lot more work to do. Like I haven't nailed that yet. So I think the next quarter was gonna be focused around like shadow, sexuality, that kind of stuff. And I think I want to push that back a couple of months and really nail this piece.
Yeah. Reminds me of John F. Kennedy's famous speech. Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. You know, give. And you see it in all the most successful people in the world that give first. Gary Vee's got the book, jab, jab, right hook, right? Give twice as much value before you ask for what, you want in return. It seems to be the key to success.
So we'll have to do a quick little recap of the B-dubs, mate.
The onion that continues to unpeel and unpack itself is somewhat of a theme. And I started this year with connection. And I've seen our coach, Pixie, every week for the last 9 weeks on the same topic. And it's bigger than it was when it started, which I like in a roundabout way. I know for some people, coming back to what we said before, of like they're looking for the gold nugget or that one session that will get them to the bottom. But it just continues to unpack itself. And my energy around the connection bit right now is a lot more harmonized and at peace than it was 9 weeks ago. And it's been a really challenging, not so much in the last probably 2 months, but you guys saw that probably 4 or 5 month period, the back end of last year, around connection that really became the catalyst for me exploring that this year. And it's, the last couple of years, I've been really transparent in my beliefs and choices. And more so over the last 6 months, I've gone about it in a much healthier way than I did previously. But it's also brought about some challenges in terms of friendships that have fallen away. And my most significant friendship of 21 years, which was super challenging when it fell away, and even more challenging in the way that it fell away. And then also someone who I was super close with before, and the ease in which that fell away. And I didn't like either of the approaches and the way in which it was done. And that in itself is a big thing, but it's also probably amplified by the fact that I do have, on a much deeper level, some kind of, trauma and work still to do around, feeling safe, trusting people, being ostracized. And 2 very significant people in my life have just strengthened that story and that trauma for me, which was challenging. And you boys saw, brought about a lot of anger and frustration. And, I'm feeling a lot more kind of at peace about it now. And who knows, there may be some other stuff that I still need to work on with those 2 instances in particular. But have moved through that stuff a lot better and have found a lot better place of connection and ease now, albeit the onion continues to kind of get deeper as well.
So, like behaviorally, what have you picked up that in the past were the biggest things you used to do that used to block connection? So have you sort of managed to unravel sort of what you would do, like what were the things that you would constantly do without realizing that you're like, oh fuck, that was a reason why I was blocking or having struggles with or sabotaging. Have you picked up on what they?
I don't know if I've got to the bottom of that yet, and you guys as a outsider might be able to see traits that block it. I think, one of the things that I've done really poorly in the past is I haven't always fought for what I believe, but I've been very judgmental of the other side. And that doesn't do anyone favors from a connection point of view. So I stand very strong in my beliefs over the last couple of years. And instead of standing for what I believe, I've been at times quite patronizing and condescending of people who have chosen otherwise, which fucking shit for. I know, Deals, I can see what you're doing down there, mate. It's hard to believe that I could possibly do that.
Oh, so funny.
But what I always come back to, and it's not always easy to sit with, is everything we do and don't do stems from somewhere. So, to really simplify the behavior around that is I was a dead shit at school. I was lucky to make it through. So really what's screaming out in those situations is the dumb kid who always got told he was the dumb kid, and now who really, from a place of inferior, is coming across as superior in terms of, you guys are fucking dumb. Why are you making that choice? All right. So that needed to be cleared first. And that was one of the first things I worked with Pixie, is like healing my inner dumb kid and not necessarily feeling inferior from an intellectual point of view, and acknowledging that now, fuck, I am actually like not bad at what I do, and having clean energy behind that. So that was the kind of first layer that needed to be moved through.
What was the unmet need there? Was it recognition? Was it love? Was it?
It was finding peace in the inner dumb kid, the one who always got made to be the dumb kid at school, like really finding peace. And yeah, cool. The way that's, school was set up wasn't suited for the way that I learned and me as an academic at that time. And, a lot of our drivers that we have these days can be from a good or a bad place. All right. So I look at the amount of work I put into learning and growing. There's a healthy part to that because I fucking love what I do. And in the past, there's been an unhealthy part of like, fuck you guys for thinking I'm an idiot. I'm going to show you. So I needed to move through that bit so that the energy in which I continue to evolve and grow and expand was coming from a really healthy, neutral place. So that was the first level. In terms of coming back to your question, Jay, of like, what are the layers that are blocking deeper connection? There's so many, and trusting in the environment that I've got was really important. But also what I've realized, and discernment's been a really important word. Discernment and intentional have been really important words in the first quarter of the year for me. And discernment is the ability to judge well. And what I've done in the past, and this is something I work with Pixie, you guys will laugh, but let me play this out first, is I've let everyone in, and then I've worked out who is a good fit for me. Let everyone into a certain level, I should kind of state. So I've let everyone in, and then I've kind of distanced myself when I've worked out they're not a fit for me necessarily, as opposed to having a level of discernment and just making sense of what do I want from friendships and relationships first, and then honoring like what level do I want this relationship to be. All right. So I've gone in and gone, fuck this, like this doesn't feel right for me, or this feels a bit icky or whatever, and pushed out, as opposed to going, level of discernment. Is that what I want in terms of, someone in my inner circle? Nah. And that's okay, and doing it from a really loving place, which is probably the part that I've struggled with the most, of like, you're a legend, I honor and respect you as you. It's just not going to come into my kind of inner circle. So that's been a really big bit. And then intentional with my time. What I realized yesterday is we did what's called a quadrant clear. And you guys will resonate with this massively because you know me quite well. I didn't think you could have success and connection. All right. So in my head, you guys have seen me, and Jay, you've seen me even closer. Connection works for me all right on the weekend because I'm not like in success work mode. But connection during the week, I was like doing whatever I could to kind of defend and deflect that from happening. All right. So quadrant clear is neutralizing your energy and being able to essentially have both, right? So am I okay with having success and not connection? And in my head, I was fucking like disgusted by that. The person literally who does anything they can to have success burns all the bridges, and there they are standing alone at the top, right? So that I wasn't okay with that. Am I all right with connection and not success? And then my first thought was like, oh yeah, I wasn't all right with that either. You know, that guy who's like just smoking billies at the pass all day and just like hanging out with people, but not fucking having any impact on the world. So I wasn't all right with that. So what we're essentially doing is finding a way to neutralize all those. Was I all right with not having success and not having connection? And I was fucking disgusted by like, what are you doing on planet Earth if you're not having either of those things? And then I was okay with having connection and success. And in my mind, I was like, no, I can't actually work out how they're both possible. So I had to clear all 4 quadrants because I didn't have good energy around any of them. And then that kind of made a lot more sense to me as to, okay, you actually do want connection. You just are coming from a scarcity mindset of like, oh, if you're connecting, you're wasting time, even though I fucking love connection, you're wasting time. And that's preventing and blocking you from having quote unquote success. So it was massive when I kind of made sense of that loop for me.
See, that's interesting. When I sit and think about it now, because I remember you saying, I want to build more connection, blah, blah. And they're like, oh, you've got to come for a coffee with this person. And you're like, no, like, it's like, hang on a minute. He's like, you got to do a podcast with some writing. And I was like, hang on a minute.
Even like, yeah, I'm working on connection, boys. By the way, I've now got a Nokia phone so that no one can contact me, and I'm really dialed in. And I was like, oh, cool, great. Like, that's real connective.
So they actually tie in together. If you think about what I've just said, is like discernment,
yeah,
being intentional, and so what it really is, when it becomes a bit of a cluster of like still being intentional and discerning of the connections that you want, but really being able to enjoy those. So that's the piece that I've kind of come to. And, you know, podcasts are a perfect example. I fucking loved the people that I've been able to connect with through podcasts over the last 5-6 weeks and super engaging. And, you know, one of the exercises that Pixie and I went through was, again, from a level of discernment, like, what do I want in my connections? You know, like, what are the characteristics and traits that I want, especially in my inner circle? And, you know, it's a really good example. Janoah and I caught up with one of our best mates 2 Friday nights ago, Flash. And we just sat there and, you know, we were mainly asking him questions about his world. He's got, 2 kids. He's, got a big booming business. We love his wife, and just like, it was just fucking great. And that conversation was really important for me because there was a level of my mind of like, am I going to become that person who just has connection with really stimulating, like far out thinkers? And will I eventually, become detached from just being able to enjoy really good, wholesome people? And, catching up with Flash was really significant for me of like, nah, I still love really fucking good people, even if they're on a different page. Like, Flash doesn't give a fuck about personal development, and I was worried that I was becoming narrow-minded, like I can only hang around people with personal development, whatever. And then we had that, and I was like, nah, that's not true. I just want to be around good, fucking warm, wholesome people, and there's certain traits and characteristics that I really, over the course of this year, am mindful of distancing myself from. And again, not from a place of like, you're right or wrong. That's just not what I want in my inner circle anymore. So it's been it's been a really big 9 weeks, and definitely not even close to getting to the bottom of my stuff when it comes to connection.
Funny what you mentioned around the success and connection and having both. And one of the things that I was journaling on a couple of weeks ago when I was really struggling was this deep fear of being the rich, successful dude in a mansion and he's all alone.
Yep.
And it was like that. I couldn't think of anything worse than being that guy that is really successful but alone. And I'm, even as you're talking, through this, I'm like, fuck yeah, I need to get back. I need to reach out to Pixie and I need to do some work on like my business and my money stories and all that sort of stuff, because no doubt that's sabotaging me in some way of like, okay, Dylan, if you go ham on your business and you level up, you're going to leave everyone behind and you're not going to have any friends and you're going to be this lonely dude with money, but alone, and you don't want that. Like, I'd rather be the guy that's got no money but really well connected. So it's like, oh fuck, if you prefer that, that's probably where you're headed, and it's not where I want to head. Like, I'd rather be the rich successful guy with lots of friends. Like, that's where I want to be.
It's interesting. I feel like the three of us on a deep level like have some form of that belief, like the three of us. So that's really interesting to be able to unpack. Yeah, I definitely encourage you boys to unpack. That session yesterday was as significant as any session I've done with Pigs around being able to hold success and connection together. Yeah. Well, boys, tell you what, it's never too quiet around these traps when it comes to doing the work. But is there any kind of thoughts for you guys around, Jay? I know you kind of mentioned where you feel called to explore over the next quarter, but I'll get you guys to kind of dial in a little bit as to what your next quarter looks like.
So yes, it's definitely. I mean, I'm going to 100%. I'm still going to work. There's more layers to this wealth stuff going on, but what I might start adding to that is a bit of the shadow work that's going to tie in. So I think the evolution will be wealth to start bringing in some of the shadow stuff, because that has in the past. I had a bit of a look into shadow work, and there's obviously it plays through, right? But that'll be my focus to extend this out a little bit and then weave in some of that as the next level up.
Jules, what about for you?
And honestly, I think it's actually, I'm going to kind of shift some gears and focus more on money and business for the remainder of the year. I feel like I did my Fem collapse with Pixie. I did some stuff there, and I think there's a lot of, I think I have no idea what that actually means to them. Like, I feel like it'll kind of be what you're talking about with your connection pieces. There's so many layers. I feel like there'll be a lot of layers that will branch out into a lot of different areas of my life around money and around business and around success. And I think the reason for that is, okay, what is bringing me the most stress right now? What's bringing me the most stress right now is finances and money and business and success. And you've got a kid on the way, like set him up, and all this shit's coming through. So I'm like, okay, that's where I want to focus so that I can just relieve some stress on me, being in a good place financially. And then the next piece will probably just be around some more stuff around being a man of your word and following through, I reckon. But I think that'll play out in the money and business as well. I think it'll all be connected.
Yeah, beautiful.
What about you,
mine's just to continue the connection bit. And I think energetically, I'm feeling a lot more at peace with, some of that kind of ostracizing in the inner child and the stupid kid, and some of the baggage that I've had that's impacted my ability to connect and really do it from a loving, open-hearted place. So just letting it kind of guide itself. If the last 9 weeks is anything to go by, it's another kind of big 9 to 10 weeks ahead. So really enjoying the stuff that's coming up, and feeling good about the direction I'm heading with it. Hope you got plenty from it. That's a little insight into the work that we've been doing. Hopefully you've been doing lots of deep work, and we'll be back soon with another episode of The Three Amigos.
Thanks for tuning in this week. As always, if you enjoyed listening, please leave a review, give us a shout out across socials, or share with a friend so that we can continue to share these incredible conversations with more and more people.